Hi, in this video we're going to be talking about how to use Rguroo to perform hypothesis testing for comparing two population proportions. So I've pulled up a previous example that we worked using the TI calculator, and we're going to do the same example using Rguroo. The National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, NHANES, weighed a sample of 546 boys aged 6 to 11 and found that 87 of them were overweight. They weighed a sample of 508 girls aged 6 to 11 and found that 74 of them were overweight. Can you conclude that the proportion of boys who are overweight differs from the proportion of girls who are overweight? And you can see where we have performed the test, we got a p-value of 0.5376. So going into Rguroo to perform a hypothesis test for two population proportions, we choose analytics analysis, and in the analysis drop down we choose proportion inference, and instead of one population we choose two populations. Okay, so just like with any proportion inference that we did for the one population, we had to make sure we labeled everything. You have to make sure you labeled everything here. So we've got a response factor we have to label, a success factor. The failure factor you can label if you want, but it's not required. And then we need to label the population that we are interested in. So the response, what we're looking at is whether the kids are overweight or not. So that deals with weight. So that's our response variable, and we consider it a success if the kids are overweight, which sounds bad because we're saying that's a success, but defining a success in one of these trials is the response we're interested in. So we're interested in seeing how many are overweight. And then the population that we're looking at is 6 to 11 year olds. Okay. If you wanted to, you could label failure is not overweight, but it's not necessary. Okay, so then under population 1, that is going to be, let's see, they give us the info about boys first. So we're going to do boys. These are 6 to 11-year-old boys, but we don't have to define that in the label because we know the population is out of 6 to 11-year-olds. And then the label 2 is girls for population 2. And then going back, boys, they surveyed or sampled 546 boys. Of the 546, it looks like 87 of them were overweight. So we'll put 87 for number of a success. So we've got sample size, number of a success, and you can see that the proportion of a success has just popped up here. So we can see that the proportion of 6 to 11-year-old boys who are overweight is 15.9% as a sample proportion. For girls, they sampled 508 girls, and of those, 74 are considered overweight. And you can see that the proportion of girls who are overweight is 14.57%. So we're going to skip over to a test hypothesis. And it says here at the bottom, proportion of overweight for boys is P1 and proportion for overweight for girls is P2. And we want to know, can you conclude that the proportion of boys who are overweight differs from the proportion of girls? So if they had said we want to know if it was greater than, we would have chosen a greater than sign. If we wanted to know if it was less than, we would have chosen a less than sign, but we want to know if it's different. And if you look here to the left of this, it says P1 minus P2. Now I know we write our null and alternate like this, but going back here, if we're implying there is a difference or is not a difference, if there is not a difference, the difference would be 0 when you subtract the two. If we're saying there's not a difference, that means that when you subtract P1 minus P2, it would not equal 0. So 0, again, always goes there. Our significance level is I do not see one listed unless I'm missing it, so we're going to assume that it is 0.05, and we choose large sample Z on these and hit our preview. We've got a data summary. What we're interested in is the p-value, which is on this table here. It says p-value is 0.537575, so 0.5376. That is the same thing that we got here, which is greater than 0.05, so we failed to reject the null. So that means there's not enough evidence to conclude H1. And we write that in context. There's not enough evidence to conclude that the proportion of boys who are overweight differs from the proportion of girls who are overweight. Okay, so there you go. That is how you find or complete a hypothesis test for two population proportions using Rguroo.